Good morning, everyone. I hope that you are doing well. Welcome to this new daily review of the 1st of August 2024. I hope that you had a good week so far in advance of NFP. Yesterday we had FOMC, and in my opinion, the delivery itself was rather clean and it provided itself some opportunities. My voice may sound a bit different because I finally figured out how to properly adjust my audio of my microphone, so I hope this will improve the quality of my lectures moving forward. I've been playing around with the settings of my microphone throughout the past few weeks, and I think I finally found a setting that I prefer. Here we are at the economic calendar for the upcoming 2 days. What we can see is that today, on Thursday, we have a lot of high impact news throughout the day. At 7 a.m. we have high impact news for the GBP, at 7:30 a.m. as well, and we have employment claims at 8:30 a.m. Next to that, we have medium impact news at 9:45 a.m. and we have high impact news at 10 a.m. for the dollar as well. Now, what I want you to understand is the following. Even though we have all of these high impact news drivers today, please be very cautious. Why? Because it is the day in advance of NFP. Tomorrow we have NFP at 8:30 a.m. and I'm going to wait and see how NFP is going to deliver. Don't do anything stupid in advance of NFP, because you can literally hurt yourself within a matter of seconds when the NFP release comes out. Don't go out there and try to gamble your funded challenge or say, look, I can pause it within a minute or so. No, because that right there is a toxic trait that you would develop that way. It's a gambler's mindset. Look, I either win or I either lose. You're not happy with that. You're not happy with 50-50. You need to go out there when the odds are significantly in your favor. And that occurs after NFP, not in front of it. Once NFP has delivered, I'll be looking at both the morning as the afternoon session. I'll be waiting until around 9:30 a.m. to see how we're going to open. And from there on, I'm going to see if there's anything to trade during the morning session. And if the morning session delivers cleanly, I'm going to look at the afternoon session as well. And else I will call it an early weekend. Here on the daily chart of the dollar, what we can see is that the dollar has rejected CE 50% of this daily CB's price range. The daily CB is the range that we're currently monitoring this week. The reason why we're monitoring this CB is because this CB will determine whether or not the dollar is going to continue drawing towards the downside like it has been throughout the month of July, or if we're changing from a sell program into a buy program. If we would displace above that daily CB with the NFP release tomorrow, then I anticipate that CB to function as support on price, and then I anticipate higher prices. If NFP is going to get utilized to reprice the dollar lower aggressively, then this sell-side liquidity comes to mind, and then we're likely not going to form a low inside of the weekly fair value gap. Again, this daily CB is the range to monitor, and that is what we're currently waiting for. If we take a look on the daily chart of Euro, what we can see is that Euro has successfully reached this old BC right here, which was a breakaway gap during this leg higher towards the June high. I mentioned that if we would utilize this BC as an inverse value gap, it would likely present itself a shorting opportunity. Notice that we displaced through that BC with this CB here. We opened up yesterday and immediately repriced towards the upside, forming the high of day, and then we repriced aggressively towards the downside today. Now, what I want you to see is the following. I want you to see how the left side of the curve failed to function as support on price. We had a chance to form a low here to continue higher, but the market showed that it would not. When it showed to us that it would not, was when the moment we displaced outside of the price range of that BC. And then that BC can function as an inverse value gap on price. On the lower time frames, Euro retraced into a very specific range to form the high there before expanding towards the downside. Now you might be wondering, okay, we have reached the objective of this BC, what now? Now that we've reached this BC, what we will be monitoring is the following. Whenever a target gets met, one or two things can happen. We either continue with the original order flow, or we're going to reverse and draw towards the opposing side. Going into NFP, I literally hold no bias for Euro. I'm simply going to wait and see how will they utilize NFP. Is it possible that NFP will just slap through that BC? Yes. If that would occur, then this BC has to function as a inverse value gap on price. Is it possible that we're going to form a low in this area and that NFP will be utilized for repricing higher? Yes, that's also possible. Again, I wait for NFP before I hold on to one-sided ideas. In my opinion, the draw on liquidity, this old breakaway gap has been met, and now we need to wait and see what would I do with NFP. And that's a mindset that I know some of you are too scared to have. You always think that you need to understand what's going to happen next. What's the next draw on liquidity? Look, what you need to understand is that the moment that your draw on liquidity gets met, you don't immediately say, okay, what's the next draw now? No, you wait for more market data, you wait for more time to pass, and you wait for algorithmic signatures to come in play that signal to you what the next draw on liquidity is going to be. And this is not based on any gut feeling. And that's why we need to submit to time. And I know it can be tempting to just say, look, we're now going to do this or this or this. No, take it one level at a time. Okay, level reached. Wait for the signs of order flow now changing or continuing. Boom, that's the next draw. If we take a look on the daily chart of GU, we can see that GU has been repriced successfully into this lower BC here and taking out the sell side liquidity resting below these relatively equal lows here. Notice that we spent some time inside the price range of this BC, which displaced through the June high, and notice that we eventually rolled over into this BC. Now moving forward on GU, I'm monitoring to see whether or not GU is going to continue to slam through this BC. If it will, then this old BC right here, which was a breakaway gap, comes to mind as a draw on liquidity. And if we are going to form a low in this area and not utilize this BC as the inverse value gap, then we might want to reprice higher into this candle's low right here. That right now is the top process for GU ahead of NFP. And with Euro reaching our target, I would be cautious when it comes to holding on to a new draw on liquidity for GU as well. If we take a look on the hourly chart of both Euro and STU, you can see the following. We can see that Euro has successfully retraced into that old CB, which got created on Monday. I shared with you that you should have this CB on your chart. If you did not watch the Tuesday review yet, I would highly advise you to do so. If you were looking at Euro on Wednesday, this provided itself a shorting opportunity. Notice that when we reached this hourly CB, GU did not trade above the Tuesday high, as you can see. Where Euro traded above the Tuesday high, GU failed to do so. We repriced into that CB, and at the right time, a reversal occurred and the market slammed lower and eventually dropped towards this breakaway gap on the daily chart. Now, the reason why I mentioned that gap to be a breakaway gap on the daily chart was due to the following. I just want to go back a few slides and I want to really touch on this for a moment. What I want you to understand is that inside of the leg from this low to this high, there was no time for the market to reprice into this BC again. So automatically, that BC then becomes a breakaway gap. And the moment that order flow changes from a buy program into a sell program, we can anticipate the market to draw towards that old breakaway gap. And that's why we were monitoring this BC to get reached. This BC formed inside of a discount from the range from this low to this high. And that's what I want you to understand. Not every single imbalance that gets created has to get retraced into before the market is allowed to continue higher. But if the order flow changes from a buy program into a sell program, that old imbalance becomes a draw on liquidity. And this occurs on all time frames. I have had trades in the past where I literally went long on the left side of the curve into an original consolidation above here somewhere before swapping into a bearish bias and drawing the market lower into that old imbalance. Because then I understand that that breakaway gap becomes a draw on liquidity. And now that I shared this, I know that in the future I will take a trade doing exactly this. Because if you understand the no daily bias model, which I explained quite briefly inside of a topical lecture, you will understand as well that that fractal presented itself here from this CB or from this CB into this BC. Boom, done. Here we're on the daily chart of NASDAQ. What we can see is that NASDAQ has been repriced into the daily CB's price range, into CE of this price range, and into this old BC right here. We've been anticipating this retracement to take place, and it's good to see it finally happen. During the Wednesday's delivery, I shared with you that there was an SMT on the lows relative to the previous week's low with ES, and that is a signature which could be very interesting going into the remainder of this week. If you are not paying attention to the updates within the market updates channel, I would highly advise you to do so. We saw the market reprice higher, taking out the buy side liquidity resting above these relative equal highs, and by doing so, we traded into this daily CB's price range. Now, moving forward on NASDAQ, I'm going to monitor this range of this daily CB. This right now is the most crucial range on our charts. If we are going to see NFP reprice aggressively towards the downside, then I anticipate us to draw towards the sell side liquidity resting below this low. This low is the low of July, which is relatively equal to the low of June. But if NFP is going to get utilized to make NASDAQ displace towards the upside, trading above this CB, then I want to see this CB function as support on price, and then I anticipate us to draw all the way towards the upside again. This CB comes to mind first of all then, and then we of course have the old all-time high, which then comes to mind. Now, you might be wondering, why would you be already looking at a scenario like this, potentially? Look, you need to understand that the signatures are present on the lows here at the right time that could signal that a CSD might occur, a change in the state of delivery, from a sell program into a buy program. But that is not confirmed yet until we violate the most crucial premium array on the left side of the curve here. And that is this CB. And that's why I'm saying, look, wait and monitor to see the reaction of this CB. If we're going to reject it and draw towards the downside, then sell side liquidity is our drawn liquidity. But if we displace towards the upside and utilize that CB as an inversion value gap, then we're in a buy program. And that's where we're currently at for NASDAQ. We're monitoring the reaction to this CB. And notice that I'm sharing with you what would determine if we're bullish or bearish for NASDAQ. Here on the hourly chart of NASDAQ, and what we can see is that during the beginning of the week, the market was repriced towards the downside, trading below the previous week's low. During the afternoon session, we saw the market then form a low in this area, whilst ES did not take out the previous week's low. We then saw the market climb higher, and we violated the imbalances which set up the repricing towards the downside. Then the morning session came on Wednesday, and the market was repriced towards the upside. Notice that we formed a breakaway gap here, and the reason why we formed the breakaway gap was due to the falling. I want you to investigate on your own at what time this high formed here, and at what time we offered sell side into that old high. You are going to understand that there was no reason for the market to retrace into this BC before reaching key buy side liquidity objectives. The key buy side liquidity objective was this candle's high right here. The reason why this candle's high comes to mind is due to the falling. Notice that this lines up with CE of that daily CB, and because of the large range of that daily CB, CE is the most crucial reference point. Notice that we have a smaller hourly CB which formed right above it. That is where price is currently rejecting off, and I would advise you to have this CB on your chart moving forward. Now, with NFP coming up tomorrow and with all of the high impact news that we have all throughout today, I am not going to hold on to one-sided ideas like I outlined. I'm simply going to go with the order flow. I'm going to wait for IBDA to show its hand, and once it has shown its hand to me and I know we're now bullish or bearish, I'm going to trade into that direction. But until that takes place, just wait. Here on the daily chart of ES, what we can see is that ES has been repriced into the high of this daily CB and into the volume imbalance which got created right here. Now, moving forward on ES, what I will be wanting to see is how we are going to react off this daily CB's price range. I outlined that ES failed to take out the previous week's low, what you can see here, and notice that the bodies are also higher on ES than they are on NASDAQ. I find it very suspicious that they left these relatively equal lows intact, but it could be that they're engineering sell side liquidity for a later point in time. Now, ahead of NFP, like I mentioned, I don't try to subscribe to a one-sided idea. I'm simply going to go into the upcoming 2 days with an open mind. If we displace above that CB and utilize it as an inversion value gap, then I anticipate ES to draw towards the upside. If ES would draw towards the downside, then I would be monitoring to see if we would draw towards those relatively equal lows. I'm simply waiting for NFP. Now, notice one thing, and that's the following. Notice that we have S&P on the lows here, and notice that we have S&P on the highs here. Is that a warning sign going into the month of August? Maybe. We need to see more signs of chop like going to take place in order to confirm that August is going to be a choppy month. And what would those signs be? Those signs would be as if we do not really displace either above or below this CB, but instead just consolidate inside of it. That is the signature I would not like to see. If that would occur, then we can anticipate very choppy delivery to take place the upcoming week or so. If we are going to see those signs be present, that is what we need to be mindful of. For now, simply monitoring to see how is this CB going to get reacted to. Here we are on the RE chart of ES, and what we can see is that ES is front running NASDAQ a bit. ES is ahead of NASDAQ when it comes to the delivery into the premiums. What we saw yesterday was that ES was already trading deeper into the daily CB's price range, whilst NASDAQ was not yet. On the mentorship forum, I shared with you that this was something to be mindful of, because until those two markets began moving in tandem with one another, we had to anticipate maybe choppy delivery taking place, because then we had S&P on the lows right here relative to the previous week's low, where ES failed to take out the previous week's low where NASDAQ did. And we saw ES trade above the Monday high, creating a new weekly high, whilst NASDAQ did not. If we would reject that Monday high on ES and we would instead roll over again, then we would have likely been range bound inside of this range from the previous week's low to the high which would have formed. Eventually, we saw NASDAQ catch up with ES and we saw the markets reprice into their respective daily CBs. This means that both markets are now moving in tandem with one another. Notice that ES repriced all the way into the price range of this old specific BC, which we have had on our charts for a few weeks now. If you do not know what this BC's price range is yet, I would highly suggest you to go back a few reviews and I would then investigate where that BC comes from. Now, if we would see ES displace above that blue box and we would begin to see it get utilized as support on price, that to me would be the signature of bullish order flow stepping in, and then we're likely going to draw towards this old buy side liquidity here. With that, this review comes to an end. I hope that you found it insightful. Please take my word, be cautious in advance of NFP. Don't do anything stupid. It's the first week of this new month, and therefore you don't want to go into the month of August, which is usually a rather choppy month in which not a lot occurs. You don't want to go into that month with a bad mindset. Just relax and let the markets become clearer before we are looking to engage. Be safe and I look forward to catching up with you soon.